this is the last month for Gene Smith. He's leaving this
Woo!
month. So we're going to have a Gene Smith celebration tonight, which means things are about to get interesting here on the OHIO podcast. Bobby Mack just became a member. That's number 19. Bobby, thank you so much. We appreciate that. Your name will be up on there, and we'll get your information from you, Bobby, in about a week or a month or so. And we'll be sure and get you your T-shirt as well. Chris, Gene
Yes.
Smith has had a roller coaster of a career. He's done some really good things, and I will be the first person to admit that. He's also done some pretty crappy things to us fans. And you be sure we're going to talk about that as well. So tonight is the night where we kind of take the good and the bad. We throw it in a tumbler
Yeah.
and we kind of just discuss it, dissect it, grade it. Um, because I think now is the time when looking back over the last decade plus,
Mhm.
gosh, 2 decades almost,
Yeah.
of him being at Ohio State, where we can say, we can ask the question, was it a good ride or not? And you guys know, Chris and I, we're going to be brutally honest about it. Brutally honest. And we're also going to be fair. And so that being said, Chris, I want to ask the first question tonight, and to you in the chat tonight. Did Gene Smith, depending on your expectations and depending on how you view success for an athletic director, did Gene Smith fall short, meet, or exceed your expectations as athletic director of the Ohio State University, Chris?
Man, there's so many ways you could take this, Eric. Um,
And we
and I
will.
almost
And we're
I
going to take it
almost think
all those
yeah,
ways tonight.
I almost think you have to look. There were some areas where, like you said, he was exceptional. You look at the fact that this is a guy who, if you count all of our sports combined, has 24 national titles to his credit in teams and another 104 individual national titles
Wow.
over all of the teams since his tenure began. Um, you look at the fact that he has raised $130 million to construct new buildings and complexes for the athletic department. And I'm going to bet the number is even higher than that by this point. So, in that traditional sense, I think he's done a decent job if you look at just the numbers. However, to me, I think he's failed in some ways as well. He did not meet my expectations with his support of the main athletic programs. And when I say the main athletic programs, meaning no disrespect to those I'm leaving off, but I feel like we've left championships and recruits and we've left other things. And not all him, but as the guy who heads up the programs, we've left championships on the table. Specifically, you look back at Urban's first year. Um, I think that some of the coaching choices have been questionable. I was disappointed that he did not actually uh, he did not actually interview Luke Fickell, and I think that led to a falling out of sorts with Fick in the athletic department at Ohio State um, when Ryan Day took over. So I think that you have to really look at it. If you're talking about in the most traditional sense of what most people would say, I would say he's probably met expectations. For me, I think that he's actually let me down a little bit. I'm going to say he did not meet my personal expectation.
Okay, interesting. All right. The chat, Scott Young, he said he completely short, so did not meet Scott Young's expectations. Billy Bob, I would say overall he at least met Billy Bob's expectations. So one against, one for. You said against Chris, you personally, and we just we're getting some of the Scoop family here joining us now. So we'll kind of recap here for everybody as they come in a little bit. But we're talking about Gene Smith, since this is his going away party, if you will. Did he meet? Did he fall short, or did he exceed your expectations as athletic director of the Ohio State University? For me, he completely fell short. I'm not gonna lie. Um, although he gets credited for bringing Urban Meyer in, I think he also gets credit for mishandling the Urban Meyer Zach Smith situation.
Yes.
I think he gets credit for definitely mishandling
Tress.
the Tressel and then Luke Fickell situations.
Yes.
I think when you look at basketball, he's completely
Failed.
puked all
Failed.
over himself there. Had one of the best coaches in all of college basketball, who had one of the best freshman classes in the last 25 years, got all the way to a national championship game, lost to Florida, a powerhouse Florida team, and was never able to get back to those standards, but just didn't get to that level again. And
Yeah.
in the and he's his whole thing with when he fired, the recent firing of the basketball program was
Yeah.
arguing about attendance.
Well, and let's not forget the way that he treated. Was it Hellwagon that he
Yeah, Steve
snapped at?
Hellwagon.
Completely unprofessional, and that's not the only time he's done that recently, where he's been snappy with the press. I really believe that he fell short of our expectations as fans, Eric, and more importantly, I think he's feeling that. And in this last month and a half, 2 months of the tenure, he's kind of made an embarrassment of himself at times.
A lot of excuse making.
Yes.
He's used the whole we have 38 varsity sports as an excuse a lot in the last couple years for things. Um, he likes to toot his own horn about being somewhat progressive with the whole NIL and student athlete support, and he really patted himself on the back when it came to mental health. I'm sorry, Gene, that had more to do
That
with
was a
Ryan
Ryan
Day
Day
than
thing.
you.
Yeah.
To you kind of um, maybe you were working in step with Ryan Day on that, but let's be honest, Ryan Day is the face and voice of that, not you.
Yes.
And then you look at what he's been doing on the national media with kind of trying to admire, gain the admiration from Buckeye Nation on his way out with saying that there should be an asterisk on that national championship for the team up north. Like, no kidding, Gene.
Where was that screaming and yelling at all season long?
Exactly. And people don't know what goes on behind the scenes, and if you make a
You're
big
you're
enough
right.
stink
We
about it,
don't know.
we would
That's right.
know. We
That's
would
right.
know. Um Donald and Karen, don't go away, Mad Gene, just go away. So are we being a little unfair here? I don't know. Let's go to the next one here, because this is where I think tonight's discussion is gonna get super interesting. Gene was on the Morning Juice, I think it was Thursday morning,
Thursday morning. Yeah.
with Bobby Carpenter, and Bobby, by the way, asked him some great
Actually, yeah,
questions.
he did. It
Thank
was
you,
actually
Bobby,
Wednesday morning because it was my last day of school.
okay. So this is Gene's kind of somewhat haphazard apology about what happened in 2011. Here we go.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, 2011 with the NCAA case that we had, we could have done some things differently. And as an institution, not just me, but a collective decision-making process, we could have done some things differently. That one I think about often. And then obviously with Urban and Zach Smith, I could have done some things differently around that. I don't necessarily agree with the suspension outcome and how it was handled, but at the end of the day, Urban and I could have done something differently.
Notice who he didn't mention at all.
He didn't mention Tress at all.
Didn't mention Jim Tressel at all.
And that was. It almost seems like a half-hearted apology, so to speak.
It feels disingenuous, doesn't it?
Exactly. Because even when he says, I could have handled it differently, he says, myself and the university could have handled things differently. Myself and Urban could have handled things differently. There's never just, I could have done something differently. I teach little kids, Eric, and one of the first things we try to teach them is own up to what you did. This guy has never once owned up to what he did. Let's call it what it is. He screwed Tress. Do we all agree with that? Tress fell on the sword to save this program, and Gene Smith let him. After that, he completely, like we say, he put in the self-imposed bowl ban, which cost Urban and this team a national title in Urban's first year.
The 2012 team should have been national champions.
Because we would have punked out Notre Dame that year.
And I think that's what he's saying. I think that, but if that's how you feel, say it.
Yes.
What's that?
That's
what's
what I'm
that,
saying. I screwed up. That's all he has to say.
What's that stupid song? Say what I mean. Say what you mean to say. Say what you mean to say. He sings that line like 400 times in the song, and he never gets to say what he means to say. That is Gene Smith. Just say what you mean to say. Say it. He won't say it. We should have won 2012 national championship, but I put self-imposed, and then look what they've done in Ann Arbor. They haven't self-imposed anything.
They self-imposed the middle finger on the NCAA. That's the only thing they've done.
And I'm telling you right now, I hope I'm wrong. You've never heard me say the hammer's going to fall on them, have you?
No, we've never heard
I know
you
a
say
lot
that.
of you in the chat believe it will, and trust me,
I
hope it does. I hope it does. But I have zero faith in the NCAA. Zero. That they can do anything. That they want to do anything. Even when they try to do things, they lose in court. Zero. So, Gene Smith, that was, in my opinion, that was terrible. Now, see, I got the chat fired up at me. Ed Rush, it will. I hope so, Ed. I really do, Ed. I want you to know, I'm hoping the hammer falls on them. But the NCAA is so toothless, man. So toothless. Larry, when Gene punted Urban, it was total BS. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. There is no reason at all Urban should have been suspended at all. There's been, and by the way, you guys know this. There's been zero proof, zero evidence brought before any court that Zach Smith ever laid his hands on his wife.
Yeah.
He's not been found guilty, not one time.
No.
And yet he's vilified. He's been vilified, and Urban's taken the blame for that. And now Urban's done some stupid things, right? Kicked the kicker, got in trouble at his own bar with a younger girl. You guys all know the stories, right? But that was one thing Urban didn't do wrong, and he got suspended for it. So
But it just goes back to how Gene Smith mishandles things. It's basically the same thing that he did to Tress, he did to Urban. For all intents and purposes, he allowed Urban to fall on the sword for the program, but Gene Smith never has taken accountability for his shortcomings when it comes to managing this program, when it comes to managing his 525 employees and his $1.5 billion football team. He takes zero accountability if something goes wrong. He'll pat himself on the back before he will any of the coaches. Something goes right. But if something goes wrong, it's not his fault. You are the coach. He's gutless.
I don't want to get into the whole Luke Fickell thing.
That'll just set me over the edge, Eric. So,
but how he has treated Luke Fickell has been so disrespectful.
Absolutely.
So disrespectful. To never even give that guy a telephone call and an opportunity to even interview. Not saying that they wouldn't have gone with Ryan Day anyways.
They probably would have. He was Urban's choice.
But you told that guy, along with Urban Meyer, that he needed to go get head coaching experience. He goes to Cincinnati. He gets that. Does a heck of a job, by the way.
First Power 5 or Group of 5 team to ever make the playoff.
And you don't even give him the opportunity to interview for the job. You just, no phone call, nothing. Didn't even take his phone call. All right, let's go to the next one. This one, to set this one up, this one, I think he has a point here. But this one is kind of him defending Ryan Day. Now, the question is, why did he feel the need to defend Ryan Day? That's the question. And that wasn't the question that Bobby Carpenter asked. Bobby basically brought up the, transitions of coaches.
Yes.
And Gene offered this segment that I've pulled out about basically what Ryan Day's had to endure as head coach at Ohio State.
Ryan is just at another level. He's probably faced the most change in the system during his tenure when you add in COVID. And where we with NIL and where we're going now with rev share, he's had to probably manage the most change. So Jim and Urban, we're in a steady time frame, frankly, from a governance point of view, but Ryan's tenure has been a little bit more challenging.
I don't disagree.
He's not wrong.
Ryan Day is basically, for all intents and purposes, having to coach like an NFL coach at this point, given the different things with the NIL, given the revenue sharing, given the fact that we have an extended schedule now, given the fact that he went through COVID. All these things have made for a very challenging time for Ryan Day. Doesn't change the expectations. And I don't know why, with you, like you asked, I don't know why Gene Smith felt the need to have to defend him. Unless it's that he feels pressure that maybe Day was on the hot seat last year and we just didn't realize it. Maybe he's defending his actions. I don't know.
If he would have, let's play what if.
Mm-hmm.
So the two biggest positions within the state of Ohio, number one is head coach of Ohio State football.
Absolutely, no doubt.
And there's not even a close second, right?
No, okay. That's why that person's the highest paid state employee in the state.
I can make an argument that number two is the men's head basketball coach.
Yeah,
Okay.
I could see that argument.
If you want to at least agree with me for just a minute to follow my
Train of thought.
here.
Yeah.
If that's the case, the man in charge of hiring the two most important positions in the state of Ohio is the athletic director of Ohio State. That's Gene Smith.
Correct.
When he had to do this, fired Chris Holtmann,
because he was god awful.
that meant that Gene admitted, by giving this guy the extension I gave him, I made a big mistake.
Yes.
If he would
He
have,
couldn't do that twice.
or if, and Ed brings up a good point, governor's pretty important. I would say governor's a close second to the men's head basketball coach, in my opinion. And we're not going to get into politics. I'm just going to keep my mouth shut. Anyways, Gene has already admitted on his way out, I made a mistake with the second most important position.
Yes.
If he would have had to, or feels like if he would have stayed another year, he might have to fire Ryan Day on his way out, that's Gene Smith admitting my last two most important decisions as athletic director of Ohio State have been failures. An athletic director is known for two things: hiring a head football coach and basketball coach, and building buildings.
He's pretty good at one.
He's pretty good at building buildings.
Here's the thing, Eric.
However, I think he's neglected Ohio Stadium, in my opinion.
I agree. But I would also say this. I would go back to saying if he had to let Ryan Day go, it would have been his last 5 biggest decisions had been failures. 1, the way he handled the trust situation. 2, the self-imposed ban. 3, how the Urban thing went down. And Urban was his guy, so he has to take the blame for that if he fired him. He not only hired him, but he fired him. And then you have the 2 most recent with the 2 head coaches. You could arguably say his last 5 major decisions
He technically didn't fire Urban Meyer.
Eric. He technically didn't fire Urban Meyer, but you know as well as I did.
President Drake
he was
the
pushed.
one who.
Pushed him.
President Drake made Urban's life miserable. Let's just be honest with that. Billy Bob, did I just hear Gene mention Tress? Yeah, he called him Jim, but he said it in a condescending way that Jim had
Urban
it easy.
coached during the stable era.
It was a stable time.
All he did was bring this program back from the friggin' dead.
So, okay, Donald, did he really admit that? He never said that. I think he was pressured by the powers that be to hire Holtmann. I do not think he really wanted to. I'm unsure about that. I was under the impression that Holtmann wasn't his first choice, nor was Holtmann his second. And so it kind of was like, I fired, the guy who, and he, at the time, it needed to happen. But I think Holtmann was basically like the 3rd or 4th option, if I remember correctly.
Which, that just boggles my mind because, granted, there are programs, as far as basketball programs, that are more desirable than Ohio State. But at the same time, it's still Ohio State. That's right. If that wasn't his choice, there were options, I'm sure, on the table that would have been better options. Why didn't we get the deal done with one of the top 2 guys that were his options?
All right, so let's move on to the next one here. When you think about Gene Smith, here's how I'm gonna think about him, and this is gonna lead into my 4th and final question. So get ready, chat, with your opinions here. Gene Smith has done a tremendous job in doing some amazing hirings with our Olympic sports.
Yes.
Women's hockey is on a roll right now. That was a great hire and has been a building machine. Um, Track and field has been good. You look at tennis. Tennis has been a machine. Indoor tennis is amazing. Outdoor tennis
The
is,
shooting teams,
yes. I mean, okay.
swimming,
So
wrestling, you know.
wrestling and right now, and if anybody argues that we don't have a good wrestling program because we haven't won the Big Ten championship in the last 3 or 4 years or however long it's been, Penn State right now is just becoming a dynasty like Iowa had way back
I
when.
said they
So
were the Iowa or the Minnesota when, you know.
yeah, Big Ten wrestling is incredibly. Big Ten wrestling is more impressive than SEC in football.
It
It
is.
is. Just when you look at how many Big Ten teams are ranked in
Our
the top 10
our
all the
worst team
time.
could probably beat the best team in most conferences.
Just about. Um, so Gene has done an amazing job being the athletic director for the Olympic sports, and I will be the first one to admit that. So here's the tough question: does he care too much about the Olympic sports as athletic director, and has that made things more difficult on the football side of things?
You know, I mean, obviously he does have a passion for those Olympic sports. Um, like I said, 24 team national titles under his reign, and only 2 of those came in football. No, only 1 of those came in football because he started after Tress's national title. Correct? So only 1 of those came in one of the big 2 sports. So he definitely has had an emphasis on there. Whether that is because he's been asked to stay away from football, I don't know. I wish he would. But yeah, I think obviously when you focus that much, and like you said, a perfect example is the fact he's running around building all these complexes and look at the state of the shoe. We could have definitely put some more money into the shoe. I don't know how much of an impact it's had, but I'm going to say, yeah, it probably has had some impact on the football team overall. Maybe even more so on basketball.
Good to see you tonight, Carl. My best buddy Carl's on. He brings up the opportunity of missing Tress dotting the
That's
I
huge.
with Youngstown. I don't know. I've tried to do some digging on that. I don't know how much influence Gene Smith actually has with who gets to dot the I.
The guy's in charge of the athletic department, Eric.
Exactly. He's not in charge of the music department.
You know what? I'm pretty
I mean,
sure.
I'm sure he could go in and make a request and they might listen to him, which he didn't make that request. I know he didn't make that request, but um, I don't think it's not his decision who gets to do it. I do know that. He might
Well,
have
I
some
mean,
influence.
I'm sure he has influence. I mean, you think about it. This guy's running a $300 million a program with a $300 million budget every year. The guy has got some stroke in there. Make no mistake about it. Yeah, you know, obviously he doesn't run the music department, but for the love, we've had people who have done a lot less for this university dotting that I. I just don't get it. I
The
don't.
perfect opportunity was last year and they missed it. That will
Just another
forever
failure on Gene Smith's behalf.
that'll burn me up. So if Larry Daniels for the $5 holler, thank you, buddy. So if you've got one of the biggest budgets and you spending near the most, shouldn't you be one of the best? Yes.
In theory, but now let's look at how many times you switch over to baseball. Look at the LA Dodgers. Look at the Yankees. Yeah, they've
This
had runs, but you know what? You're spending all this money only to come up short. Especially the Dodgers, more so than the Yankees.
you it doesn't win you championships, but it gives you the opportunity to win championships.
Correct.
Mello, be safe driving, man. He's listening to us while he's driving. Thank you for checking in and listening to this tonight, buddy. Be safe out there. I would say quit texting and driving, but I've heard people tell you that before, so I'm not going to be that guy.
Maybe he's got talk to text, and he's
there
not
you go.
Even, maybe he's doing the old hands
free. He's just talking to us, right? I love it. I can see Mello while he's driving. He's yelling into his phone. He's all mad at me, yelling into his phone. People driving by. What's that guy yelling into his phone for? Talking Buckeyes, man. They need to bring Orlando Pace in to dot the I. Orlando Pace would not dot the I. Orlando Pace. He would be the whole I. He would be the largest I in the history of I dotting ever, is what that man would be. I have a picture of when I got to meet him. I am by no means a small human being, okay?
But compared to Orlando Pace, you are.
I looked like my name was Muggsy Bogues, not Eric Boggs, when I stood next to Orlando Pace, okay? Dude is absolutely ginormous. And I'll tell you another, when I stood next to Greg Oden,
yeah,
I didn't see the sun anymore. It was gone. The sun disappeared. When I stood next to Greg Oden, it was like the sun was like a total eclipse. It was gone.
But can I just tell you, he's an awful nice guy.
Oh,
I had the opportunity to meet Greg Oden as well. Just a super nice guy. Huge, though. You're right.
Absolutely ginormous human being. Donald and Karen, thank you so much for the $20 holler. Donald and Karen, one of our official members. Thank you so much, my friends. I'm looking forward to seeing what Bjork does for our football program. Yes.
Absolutely.
I am too. This is a football guy. Okay? This is a guy who wants to win, and this is a guy who has made some pretty questionable decisions because he wants to win so much. But give me a guy who's addicted to the W as athletic director over someone who's addicted to being politically correct.
Yeah, I agree.
Did I just say that out loud?
I agree, and I love it. And let me tell you, I was absolutely, and Gene Smith was still the athletic director at this time, but I cannot tell you, I am really excited that they gave Deaver that basketball coaching opportunity.
Yes,
I think it takes guts to give somebody that job who's a job that has never had that type of job before, as far as the head coaching role, but who in his limited time as a interim coach did such a phenomenal job at turning around a team that someone who was so highly touted couldn't win with.
I think that hire was all Bjork.
I do too, and I'll tell you what, I think it has the opportunity, and man, I'm going to put a lot of pressure on Deaver when I say this. I think he has the opportunity to have a Tressel type effect on our basketball team.
Ooh. Oh. Man,
if that happens, Eric, you and I might actually go back to enjoy talking basketball on a podcast again.
Chris, you son of a gun. I have never heard you whisper the sweetest words into my ear hole ever on this podcast than what you just spoke to me. That was downright titillating.
I think that there is that potential with this guy.
Gosh, what a fun conversation.